Yo, what up, a-holes? It's your boy, Eric Levi, the holistic a-hole, the mommy blogger with balls, coming back at you today with a new video. Today, talking all about ibuprofen, aspirin, and depression. There's a new article out here that is discussing a study. Let's pull it up here. It's titled, Ibuprofen and Aspirin Can Battle Major Depression, Scientists Find. And so this article is all about the link or discussing a study that now finds a link that, in fact, NSAIDs, these basically over-the-counter painkillers, non-steroidal, anti-inflammatory drugs that can actually do a better job of managing mental illness and depression than prescription antidepressants can, which I find amazing because what I've learned throughout my own health journey is that most things actually do a better job of managing depression than antidepressants do. Case in point, there's people who are depressed, who are on antidepressants, who are still depressed, which means what is the point of these antidepressants? Why are we taking them, or why are people taking them, if in fact they don't work? If you're taking an antidepressant and you're still depressed, that means the antidepressant doesn't work very well. And it's a very sad situation because antidepressants and any, antipsychotic medication for that matter, comes with its own set of side effects, which can be a huge problem. Many people deal with digestive issues with these drugs. Many people deal with, chronic pain, mental health issues. I believe one of the side effects of antidepressants is actually depression and thoughts of suicide, which completely contradicts the whole point of having an antidepressant drug. So, yeah, I do see a lot of research that comes out that shows all of these different things, such as, many foods, NSAIDs, and even placebo. In fact, they say that many of these antidepressants actually work or placebo is actually more effective at dealing with depression in a lot of these clinical studies than many of the antidepressants, So my own personal preference, I am a little biased here because in an ideal world, I would love to see people off of antidepressants. I think they are just a real sign of weakness, and I don't say that coming from a super alpha male macho perspective. I'm saying that they show signs of weakness because we as people evolved to be strong. We evolved to build the society we live in today. We went through far more challenging circumstances, throughout our history as people, as humans, than we do today. And yet we're more miserable, we're more depressed than ever. And quite frankly, I don't have the empathy for it. I want to have the empathy for it. I see plenty of people who are depressed, but it just doesn't make sense to me how you can have access at your fingertips to every piece of human information, to be connected virtually to every single person in the world, to have the ability to call a restaurant and have the food brought to you within 20 minutes of ordering. And yet still that's not good enough for you. You have video games, you have movies, you have every possible distraction in the world, and yet you're still depressed. So what does that tell us? It tells us that depression it's not a disease of abundance. It's a disease of does that make sense? A disease of abundance. It's not a disease per se of of not having enough. It's a disease of having too much. It's a disease of having too much stuff available to you, no struggle in your life, no meaning in your life. A drug isn't going to find meaning in your life. You have to do that for yourself. People have forgotten how to do the hard work of finding meaning in their lives. And you got to do that. And a drug's just not going to give that to you. That's a little sidebar, has nothing to do with the article I want to talk about, but the article does prove more of my point that these antidepressants are just absolute garbage. And I should say, I'm not crazy about what this article is saying about NSAIDs either. So let's check it out. Anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen and aspirin can battle major depression effectively and could be a safer alternative than antidepressants, a new major study suggests. More than 1 in 6 British adults, around 7.3 million people, take antidepressants, but the drugs do not work for around 30% and can bring side effects such as nausea, insomnia, weight gain, and even suicidal thoughts, which, look, that's an antidepressant. That's not what you're supposed to have. You're not supposed to have suicidal thoughts on an antidepressant. It's just crazy. And we just accept that that's normal. Now, an analysis of 30 studies involving 1,610 people has concluded that NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, were 79% more effective at fighting major depression than a placebo. So they don't really in the study measure NSAIDs against antidepressants, but it still makes the point that, well, NSAIDs are quite effective at battling depression. And I'm going to get into the reason why here. Let's just go more through the article because they will talk about it. Researchers at the Huazhong, I think that's how you say that, Huazhong University of Science and Technology in China, don't make me say Chinese things, who carried out the analysis concluded that anti-inflammatory agents show promising effects and call for long-term follow-ups. The study also found that other anti-inflammatories, such as statins and omega-3 fatty acids, also fight depression, and that the drugs boost the effectiveness of antidepressants when taken together. And there's a pretty solid footing for understanding why that is. Why do anti-inflammatory substances like NSAIDs, omega-3s, or even statins in this case, how do they work to prevent depression? Why does that make any sense? Because we know now, within the last 20 years, the research has been published, and there's a lot more research being published now than ever before about the direct ties of inflammation to depression. We know that depression, when we talk about mental illness, when we talk about chemical imbalances, what we're actually really talking about is a physiological process known as inflammation. Inflammation is at the root of all of mental illness. We now know that. More and more studies are coming out that tie inflammation to depression. Let's look at a few of them here. Okay, the emerging field of nutritional mental health, inflammation, the microbiome, oxidative stress, mitochondria. This was published. Where does it say? At the University of Calgary. Don't know exactly where this was published, but you can see 41 citations. This is a scientific article. Let's pull up another one here. And these are just a few that I pulled up in a few minutes that I will look, but these are everywhere. The gut-brain barrier in major depression, intestinal mucosal dysfunction with an increased translocation of lipopolysaccharides from gram-negative enterobacteria, basically leaky gut, plays a role in the inflammatory pathophysiology of depression. That is basically a long way of saying that inflammation causes depression or plays a major role in depression, right? And where does inflammation start from? Inflammation starts in your gut. Okay, that's why those articles I just pulled up, that's basically what they're talking about. Okay, inflammation is actually has to do with your immune system. Inflammation is a dysregulation of your immune system. The reason you have inflammation is because your immune system is responding. It's responding to some kind of stimulus, whether it's an infection or it's like some kind of damage in the body somewhere. So what the body does is it physically inflames. It actually heats up and uses the immune system to open up the blood capillaries, the blood vessels, so that more blood can flow through to these different parts of the bodies that need specific attention. Inflammation is at the heart of all the chronic disease. It's at the heart of autoimmune disease. It's at the heart of diabetes, cancer, heart disease, all of these diseases. It's all about inflammation. And nothing gives us more inflammation than, like this study says right here, the really long one that we had a hard time saying. Nothing causes inflammation more than this bad boy right here, leaky gut. Okay? So leaky gut, some people think that, oh, that's quackery. No. What happens is the barrier of your intestine actually opens up after you have a lifetime of essentially eating like garbage. Other things can cause leaky gut, like stress, but it's mostly diet and stress are the two big ones that cause leaky gut. And you get these things that leak out of your gut called lipopolysaccharides that trigger your immune system. Okay, I believe it's over 80% of your immune system actually is on your gut-line barrier. And so when your immune system needs to go to work, it leaves the gut line and travels to wherever you need attention, okay? This is when you have immune responses. This is why you have inflammation. And again, nothing will trigger your immune system going crazy like a bad digestive system. And it doesn't take a lot to cause leaky gut. Right? You think about all of the toxic food that we eat, all of the processed garbage, all of the GMOs, all of the highly acidic foods, all of the soda, the sugar, the transhydrogenated fucking oils and canola oil and highly toxic omega-6 fats and the chemicals that we're constantly bombarded with all day. All of this causes or contributes to leaky gut. And a faulty digestive system, not being able to actually break down food in your stomach, causes leaky gut. There's so many issues with leaky gut. It triggers the immune response, and now this leads to what? Leads to depression, okay? And this article actually goes a little bit more into the connection of this that I'm talking about. So, the study also found that current treatment for depression is largely centered around restoring mood-boosting chemicals in the brain, such as serotonin. But experts now think the cause may be an overactive immune system triggering inflammation throughout the body, which sparks feelings of hopelessness, unhappiness, and fatigue. And oddly enough, when they talk about serotonin, what they're talking about here is things like SSRIs. So SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, essentially the whole job of those is to limit the amount of serotonin that's broken down in your brain, because the theory is that people are depressed because the brain is essentially metabolizing more serotonin too quickly for somebody's brain to actually use so that they can be happy and feel essentially level and normal and good. But the thing they forget about, which is also tied to the gut, which is that 90% of the serotonin that ends up in the brain is actually made in the gut, okay? Tryptophan is converted in the gut into serotonin. It travels up along usually the vagus nerve through the blood-brain barrier and goes into the brain, okay? So we wonder, well, how does serotonin end up in your brain in the first place? It's because it comes from the gut. So if you take care of your gut, if you eliminate things like leaky gut and all of these digestive issues, you will actually be able to not only make more serotonin, but actually get the serotonin up in your brain. Okay, so it's funny because, what this study's doing is it's only really focusing on the inflammation, which is a huge part of it. But then also, and I don't know if they actually say this in the details of the study, they might, but when you actually control your inflammation by focusing on your gut health, you will subsequently also fix your serotonin problem. So, it's similar to the low mood and that people often experience when they are fighting a virus such as flu, and some scientists believe it is an evolutionary adaptation that kept sick people away from their families and friends, which, okay, why not? Why not? We're humans. We're always looking for a connection between things. Like, why does a thing happen? What's the point of inflammation? Oh, it was to keep our friends away from us when we were sick. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll go with it. It's fun. Doctors first noticed a link between inflammation and depression, and finding that people who have vaccinations often feel glum as their immune system ramps up following a jab. Also, maybe because they were poisoned. I think that might have something to do with it. Likewise, people with autoimmune conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis, where the immune system is out of control, are far more likely to be diagnosed with depression. Several studies have reported that markers of inflammation are raised in depressed people, but fall as they get better. Yep. Because in autoimmune disorder, that again is your immune system. Your immune system is completely dysregulated. And in people, due to your genetics and your lifestyle, your epigenetics, the immune system is triggered in all of these different directions. And in many people, it takes the form of different things like rheumatoid arthritis. For some people, it's type 1 diabetes. For many women, it's Hashimoto's. For a lot of people, it can be multiple sclerosis. I mean, there's a whole long list of autoimmune diseases that people, especially in America, are suffering from. And it's not just coincidental that it happens to be that we also have a completely polluted and, quite frankly, straight up garbage food supply. Professor Alan Carson, Center for Clinical Brain Sciences, who edited the article, which was published in the Journal of Neurology, Neurosurgery, and Psychiatry, see, I knew it was in one of these journals, said depression may simply be the price we pay for having an immune system. No, it's actually the price we pay for having a dysregulated immune system and a garbage diet. The immune system triggers an inflammatory response when it feels it's under threat, sparking wide-ranging changes in the body, such as increasing red blood cells in anticipation that it may heal the wound soon. So, yeah, I mean, they're just kind of at this point, trying to explain to you the whole reason why inflammation happens in the body in the first place. Like, what is the evolutionary reason for this, right? Scientists believe that associated depression may have brought an evolutionary benefit to our ancestors. If an wounded tribal member became depressed and withdrawn, it would prevent a disease from being passed. However, a link has taken so long to establish because until recently, scientists believed the brain was entirely cut off from the immune system, trapped behind the blood-brain barrier. But recent studies have shown that nerve cells in the brain are linked to immune function, and one can have an impact on the other. Around 60% of people referred to cardiologists with chest pain do not have a heart problem, but are suffering from anxiety. Yeah, man, it's all tied together. This is tied to this because we have the vagus nerve, we have the gut-brain connection. This is all real stuff. There's a reason people listen to their gut or trust their gut. People refer to the gut as the second brain. I believe it was famous Greek philosopher Hippocrates who said all disease starts in the gut. We've known this for a very long time, but there's no money in trying to just teach people how to eat a healthy diet. So, this is just an interesting article because as much as it's talking about the benefits of specifically things like NSAIDs, the higher purpose of me talking to you about this right now is for you to understand that depression is directly linked to inflammation. So you can't just rely on pills to fight inflammation. In fact, trying to fight inflammation through pills can be quite dangerous, right? You have studies that talk about the dangers of NSAIDs, the side effects of NSAIDs, like leading to adverse psychiatric events, right? You have all of these problems that come from NSAIDs. Here's another one. Let's see. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug use and risk of endometrial cancer. There's problems with NSAIDs and kidney failure. The liver is a huge target for NSAID problems. Evaluation of risk profiles for gastrointestinal and cardiovascular adverse effects in non-selective NSAID and COX-2 inhibitor users. So, look, man, If you have pain in your body and it's unbearable, sure, use Tylenol, use Advil, use an Ibuprofen, okay? But if you have depression, I would not recommend going on long-term use of one of these, drugs to try to fight your depression, because your depression is it's systematic, it's chronic. It's not just a thing you're gonna use some pills and get rid of it. It's like you have to actually use your body and build habits physiologically through your diet to battle depression. So, I'm going to be coming out with a lot more videos on this specific topic, the link between mental health and diet. But this is just an interesting article to talk about because, it's talking about exactly that. It's talking about, when you start seeing the mainstream media putting out links between inflammation and depression, that something's starting to change. So, let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this are. I know a lot of people think this is quackery science. I know a lot of people are very resistant to this change, but you have to understand that this is the future, that what's happening right now with this information is the way that the mental health field should be going to deal with this problem. Also, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a big thumbs up because you enjoyed it, and, share it with all the people you love. Anybody who's dealing with mental health issues, anybody who's dealing with inflammation, and send them my way. Send them the Holistic A-Holes way. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. New videos coming out every day. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.